events. What are we discussing really? I don't know if you realize it or not. What we're really discussing are the critical factors and processes which are involved in the entire creation of the world. Whether you realize it or not, this is what is at the center of all reality. It is what is at the center of all human history, except it is not visible. If you want to have an idea about what goes on out there, or why things happen the way they do, you must become familiar with the basic principles. These are the basic principles. But this is only the beginning, because it's from here that we have to expand, to go even deeper into what really are the underlying processes that are going on. Let's start from the beginning. If you'll notice, I've divided all the information in the last several weeks into 4 basic areas. 1, 2, 3, 4. In the first basic area, we will discuss some of the basic premises of the entire system and some of the key principles which are at the foreground of the system. Then we will attempt to understand the actual expression of that system in terms of the first man, Adam Rishon. You must remember, Adam Rishon was not the first man of creation, but Adam Rishon was the only man of creation. It was supposed to have started with Adam, and it was supposed to have ended with Adam. The fact that the world went on beyond Adam Rishon is a secondary concept. Everything we see here and everything we are today is in some way reflected about what Adam was in his time. Adam is the beginning and the end of humanity itself. So what we're trying to do is to understand the fundamental principles of this spiritual process in terms of Adam Rishon himself. What does history tell us about Adam Rishon? It tells us that Adam Rishon failed. So what we want to understand is, how did that failure alter or transform the critical spiritual processes in which he represented? That is the third concept, the notion of his failure. And finally, number 4, what did the Ribono Shel Olam do? The key thing that we want to know is number 4, given the fact that Adam Rishon failed, what did the Ribono Shel Olam do? What were the restorative, rehabilitative processes in which the Ribono Shel Olam sent into the world and made it part of reality to undo the damage that Adam Rishon did? That's essentially the scenario. Do we see that? These are the series of events. To understand this complete picture, to understand the various phases of this picture, is to begin to understand the critical principles in which this world is governed. And we will continue, because you will have to realize that by analyzing this picture deeper and deeper, we will get a finer and finer understanding of what God's providence or God's conduct, what the way He rules behavior and reality from this scheme. But this scheme can be presented on a number of levels. What I want to do is first give you the overall view of the scheme and to slowly begin to descend in depth. You cannot understand history in its internal processes until you understand what this is about. Do I make myself clear what the objective of this is? We're being very systematic and methodical. Let's see if we can't do the entire thing. The neshama, the human soul, What are we talking about? What kind of entity are we talking about? When we talk about the neshama, we are essentially talking about a specific entity composed of a certain type of substance capable of performing a certain type of operation. It is composed of spiritual substance, and it is able to sense or know through its being the beauty which emanates from God. That beauty comes from a perception of His unity. And how that works, we spoke about that a little bit. We will again speak about it in the future, but I'm assuming that the people here have a basic understanding of this. Thus the neshama, uninhibited in and of itself, is a purely spiritual being whose specific ability, more than that, the reason of its existence, is to come to know God, or the aspect of which God projects Himself, which is unity. The fact that His being is the pervasive reality of all existence. That clear perception is what the neshama is capable of. And when it has that perception, it has an enormous simcha or an enormous joy. And we have said before that perception we also have in our body. Because fundamentally all pleasure and all pain comes from the ability to recognize God's unity or the inability to recognize it in all its manifestations. Thus we see what the neshama is by itself. Now, the neshama is a certain type of being, a certain type of substance at a certain point. What about the guf, the body? The body is another type of being, another type of substance. And what it is that the body, the guf, was also created. But the substance of the body is a much lower substance. It is much coarser. It is very distant from the substance called ruchnius, or spirit. The question that we want to ask and we want to observe is, what happens if you have an entity of a neshama and the entity of a guf, and you put the two together? What happens if you merge these two types of beings with different types of substances? What happens? Interesting experiment, isn't it? Well, I will tell you what happens. And here we are on the second. What happens if you take a neshama and you take a guf and you put it together? What results? And I tell you what results is the following. What would be the immediate state of that neshama? Well, since the guf or the body is much coarser in its substance than the neshama, the first initial reaction is that the neshama feels trapped in a prison. It feels all of a sudden unable to do that which it is most capable of doing, which is what? To be aware of the unity or the beauty of God. That's what it's most capable of doing. Take that neshama, put it into a body, it loses that capacity. Why? Because it's like putting a barrier around its eyes. It's like putting a mask on its face, so that it can no longer perceive spirituality. It is what? It becomes confined to the level of perception of the body itself. Now the body, through its five senses, cannot come to know ruchnius or spirituality. It cannot. It can only see and experience the physical, not the spiritual. Take a neshama and put it into a body, and the body becomes confined by the perception of the body. You see, it can no longer see the spiritual. It can feel the spiritual in terms of its internal properties. It can intuitively know that there is something beyond the physical, but it cannot come into direct contact with that because of the fact that the body holds it. Do we understand the reaction or the interaction of a neshama into a body? Yes. Okay? Do we understand that clearly? Now what would happen as a result? Well, I told you, take a neshama and put it through a guf, and you have what? You have an obstruction to the spiritual perception of the neshama. But wait, how long would that obstruction last? Not for a very long time. It would not last for a long time. Why not? Because the neshama has a very peculiar ability. It has a certain factor which exists in its being. What is that? It's able to take the body and the substance and transform it. It's able to convert the substance of the body, which essentially makes it opaque to spirituality, and remove that opaqueness. Okay? What is the process whereby the neshama does that? What is the word in Hebrew which symbolizes that type of process? We said that's called zichuk, from the word zoch. Zoch in Hebrew means pure. Zichuk means to purify, to take out something which is impure from something else and leave it whole or pure. Do we understand this? The body has a certain factor in it. That factor is due to a substance. We have called that factor an opaque factor. Right? The opaque factor. It is that the opaque factor in a body which does not allow a body, you see, to perceive spirituality. A neshama placed into such a body would begin to undermine that opaqueness, would remove it through the process called purification or zichuk. That's a very important word. So, the neshama has what's called a zichuk factor. We call that the Z factor. Okay? And the guf has an opaque factor, which we call the O factor. Okay? It is the relationship of the Z factor to the O factor that the Z factor is able to nullify the O factor, given enough time. Hence, this kind of combination would be very unstable. It is an unstable union. I want to make sure that everyone understands. We're being very precise over here. Understand that. It is an unstable union. It's an unstable reaction here. And the neshama and the guf will mezachik that guf in very little time. Why? Because the power of its kedusha, of its holiness. Now, the Rebbeinu Shalom does not want that. Because the Rebbeinu Shalom wants the neshama to be in a guf, to stay in a guf. Because the Rebbeinu Shalom wants that guf to be a barrier to the neshama, so that the combination of guf and neshama together, called the person, can then go ahead and choose spirituality. Instead of the person choosing the beauty of the physical world, the Rebbeinu Shalom, God wants the person to choose the beauty of the spiritual world. That is his choice. So what does the Rebbeinu Shalom do to prevent the neshama from being mezachich or purifying the body? What does he do? He reduces the neshama in power. He minimizes its power. Specifically, he takes away that peculiar factor of the neshama which is mezachich the guf. Which means that now the neshama must reside in that body without being able to purify it. It is now confined. It is trapped. You see. It is confined to the perceptions of the body. Together we have what's called the person. A person is a combination of a guf, a body, and a neshama together. What does a person feel like being a combination of both? He is a being who has strong physical drive because it feels his body. But at the same time, he feels a certain drive for truth. And for that which is beyond the physical, that is the power of the neshama in the person. Both are registering its effect to the person, both the neshama and the guf. So, we come to the third level. The first level is the neshama alone. The second level is the neshama in a body, but the neshama is in totality or complete. And the third level is the neshama reduced, let's say, to half. That's not really what it is. Rather, it's the neshama without the Z factor, which means, like we say here, no zichuk. That's what happens. No zichuk. No zichuk means that the body constitutes a full barrier. So, what does the Rebbeinu Shalom do? What does the Rebbeinu Shalom do to prevent the neshama from what? Not being able to perceive spirituality. He did two things. What are the two things? you can see two things that he did. What are those two things?
To the neshama, to the free.
No, to the neshama. How did the Rebbeinu prevent the neshama from coming into contact with spirituality? One, he put it into a body.
Took away some of its power.
And number two, he removed the possibility of zichur. You see the two things? Those are the two things. Okay? You understand that? He one, put it into a prison, the body. And number two, he took away the ability of the neshama to get out of that prison. That means that when God created this world, the physical world, there are two fundamental actions that happened when he created our world. One, he created the body and the entire physical world. And number two, he took the neshama, who was not yet brought down, and removed its zichur factor. Those are the two things that he did, you see. And then he put the neshama into the physical world. These two aspects, guf and loss of Z factor, are the essential activities in which the Rebbeinu did to what? To distance the neshama from himself. So that the person now is subject to true free will. He has a choice of going after the physical world or attempting to re-establish himself in a spiritual way. We've gone to some of these things in great detail. I'm not going to do it now. What the 8 hours and so on and so forth. The most important thing is I just want to go over this particular system, scheme. Is this clearly understood? I don't think I can make it clearer. Okay, let's go on. We now understand the basic principles of zichur. We understand when it takes place and why it cannot take place now. Now, with this information, let's analyze Adam Rishon, the first man. And let's understand what he was about. What was he about? The Rebbeinu took and created, the Rebbeinu created a neshama, a soul. This soul was incredibly staggering. It is the greatest soul that has ever been made or will ever be made. What is it? It is a soul that if we would take all the souls of all the people who ever lived from the beginning of time until the end of time, and we put them all together and sew them into one big soul, that's the neshama that was created at the outset. That is how staggering that neshama was. Okay? I'm talking about if you take the soul of Avraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, our forefathers, Moshe, Yoshua, Rabbi Akiva, Rashi, the Rambam, the Vilna Gaon, everyone who has ever made every tzaddik, I'm talking about everyone, but imagine all those people put together into one neshama. That's who the first man was. So you can begin to understand that Adam Rishon is very different than us. Now you may say, what kind of person is that? What does it feel like to be that kind of person, with that kind of neshama? I'll tell you what it is. To be that kind of neshama is more than just to be everybody. You see, why? Because when that neshama was created, it was created from the highest spiritual power. When God created that neshama, He used the highest spiritual power on the highest plane possible. And therefore, anyone who possessed that type of neshama would intuitively become aware of what goes on in heaven itself. He would be connected to the highest of all the worlds, clearly, and he would instinctively experience in his mind that which goes on in heaven itself, just because he possessed that neshama. But if you take that kind of neshama and you put it into a guf, he will also experience a whole different side of reality. And that's what the body tells him and what reality says. But it is quite obvious that Adam Rishon was not like us. You can't take a neshama like that and stick it to a guf and out comes the regular person. It is impossible. It is too great. So Adam Rishon's body was very different than our body. Since his neshama was so incredible, his body was also incredible. Now what does it mean to have an incredible body? I am not talking about a person who works out and a Mr. Universe. You see, that's what I'm not talking about. That kind of incredible body. We're not talking about Schwarzenegger or somebody else over here. What do I mean by incredible body? Right. His body was not opaque. It had an opaque factor. It did. But rather, what it really had was something else. It really had what's called the translucent factor. Because in essence, his body was not opaque to spirituality. It was translucent to spirituality. So he did not have an opaque factor. He had a translucent factor. Now, what is a translucent body? A translucent body is one where the neshama is able to gain some kind of experience of spirituality, but in a haze, you see. It's able to see something off in the distance, but it's very fuzzy and very hazy. That is a translucent factor. So Adam Rishon was put into a body which is essentially translucent to spirituality. And this is essentially what his condition was. So we see that the condition of Adam was totally different than the condition of everyone else. It was a much greater neshama, and his body was at a much higher level. Do we all understand this carefully? How does it feel? Like I said, there's a certain ability to experience spirituality through the body, even while you're in the body. All the physical functions were the same as we have, except that when he would eat, he could feel the spirituality of the substance he was eating while he was eating it. Not only did he feel himself eating a physical item, chewing a physical item, but literally he can sense the spirituality. So that while he was taking in the physicality of it, he was also taking the spirituality which existed in that food. And he can sense it as it was going in. Do we understand that? Very good question. What is the relationship of Adam Rishon to the physical processes? The relationship of Adam Rishon to the physical processes with the translucent group was that since his body was able to what was Adam Rishon supposed to do? What did God want from Adam Rishon? What God wanted from Adam Rishon was a very important thing. The Rebbeinu said to Adam, or not actually, but it's as if the Rebbeinu said to Adam, I have made you from two different substances, and I have combined two opposing substances and made you. I want you to do something. I want you to remove the conflict in which I put into you. You are a man of conflict. You are a man at war. Why? Because it's your nature to be at war. If you are composed of two different substances, each one having a different objective, you must be by your very nature at war with yourself. You must be constantly feeling inside you an inclination or direction in two opposing ways. You are a man who is built on conflict. But I want you to remove that conflict. I want you to make one person. And I want you to do something so that one substance dominates. But I give you the choice of which substances to dominate. I say to you, let your neshama dominate over your guf. Let the spiritual part which you are dominate over your guf. And let not the guf dominate over the what? The spirit. So Adam says, wait a minute. Even if I want to dominate my physical processes, I can never relieve myself of my body, because you have said to me that I have created a union which will never be removed. Remember that. When God created Adam and He put the neshama in the body, it is the intention of the Rebbeinu Shalom never to let that neshama go free. The neshama has found its eternal home. What does that mean? Adam says to the Rebbeinu Shalom, how can I ever free myself if I'm a man in conflict? How will I ever be able to free myself and become one person if I am forever fettered to my body? So the Rebbeinu Shem says, because you have the power on your neshama called a Z factor, you can mezachich that guf. You can remove its translucency, and you can what? You can create it and make it transparent as like glass. Once you have converted the substance into glass, you will no longer have any problem to see the absolute beauty, well, rather the relative beauty of God. You will not have a problem in perceiving the yichud of the Rebbeinu Shalom in its beauty. And that will be your Olam Haba. I say to you that you will be able to convert yourself into one person. You will have secured total peace of mind, because you will have secured complete unity of being. And by doing that, you will create a state called Olam Haba. How? Because the neshama has within it the ability to change and transform that other substance. That's the way you will establish your unity. That's what the Rebbeinu Shem told Adam. That's no exact word. But essentially, that's what the Rebbeinu Shem told Adam through the mitzvah that he gave him. What happens if Adam had listened to what the Rebbeinu Shem said? An incredible, incredible thing. If he had held out till Shabbat, he was created Erev Shabbat, he was created Friday morning. If he had held out to Shabbat, what would have happened? What would have happened is that Shabbat itself, the day called Shabbat, was such a powerful day that it would have allowed suddenly a tremendous kedusha or spiritual force to descend. It would have entered into his neshama. He would suddenly have felt himself incredibly invigorated. And suddenly the Z factor would have been restored. He would suddenly have had the spiritual power. How? To restore his body. To remove the translucency and make himself into a total unified being. Now, remember, what I have just told you is the key to what Shabbat is. Because in truth, what is Shabbat? It's the seventh day of the week, you see. It is a day that we all cease from doing activity. Why do we cease from doing activity? Why? We cease from doing activity because the Rebbeinu Shem said that on that day, when you cease from physical constructive activity, I will release very powerful spiritual forces that will descend into your neshama. And even though now you cannot feel it, you will one day feel it. But in the time of Adam, he would have felt what we can no longer feel now, but what nevertheless occurs. We would have felt the spiritual power which comes down on Shabbat. Now, had Adam waited the Shabbat, then he would have felt that spiritual power come down on Shabbat and reconvert his neshama, restoring its zichur power, and suddenly he would have looked at his hand and he would have slowly seen what? The translucency disappear. That's what was waiting for Adam Rishon. That's what was in store for Adam Rishon. Do we understand now who Adam was? Do we understand the nature of his neshama, his soul, the nature of his guf, his body, the interaction of the two? Do you understand the conditions that he was brought down upon? That his defect, his zichur ability was removed? Do we understand what the importance of his mitzvah was? Do we understand the objective that he had and what he should have done? Yes. The specific purpose why Adam was created was why? Was to take his neshama and dominate the guf. Meaning, he was to take down the spiritual power available to him and use that spiritual power to elevate the substance of his body. So that now the neshama can perceive the beauty of God directly, without any mask and without any barriers. This is the power what Adam Rishon had. And he had this power right away. It would have been instantly recognizable to him. He would have seen it happen in front of his eyes. Do we understand this? Yes.
How do you see that this man is having a tremendous neshama next to the
neshama and look at this guf, he could see with his prophecy what would happen. Actually doing it and committing error.
Well, that's a very good point. I'm not going to go into the intricacies of the actual test of Adam Rishon. It would be too difficult at this point, But the question you asked me is a very good one. How did Adam fail? How does a man with that kind of neshama and with that kind of guf fail? Now it is obvious that even though you have that kind of neshama and you have that kind of guf, the Bonisham wants free will, which means that obviously the Bonisham had to create another force, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, which is an exact counterpart to that, or else there's no free will. There's got to be an equal amount of darkness on an equal amount of light, which means that the Bonisham created a different type of Yetzer Hara. We do not have that Yetzer Hara anymore. It is too high for us. It is too subtle for us. It is a Yetzer Hara which is extremely close to the spiritual. You see, it wasn't a Yetzer Hara of what? Of getting involved in physicality like we do. Adam did not know what our Yetzer Hara was like. If Adam Rishon was living now, he would be in stitches, laughing completely. Because the Yetzer Hara that we have is the Yetzer Hara almost above the ape. That's the kind of Yetzer Hara that we have, really. He would laugh at that Yetzer Hara, because the Yetzer Hara that we have is a physical, low, very base Yetzer Hara. It is the Yetzer Hara for good food, good times, good pleasure. Whatever it is, Adam didn't know that. You see. What Adam knew, even what his body told him, was a very strong physical, spiritual combination. Everything that Adam's body told him was not only physical, it was also spiritual. So therefore his Yetzer Hara was much more subtle. And at this point, I don't want to go into exactly what that is, because to understand that, we have to understand what the Eitz HaDa'at was. What does it mean to eat of the fruit of the tree of life and knowledge, knowledge of good and evil? What exactly was in that tree? And what does Adam see in that tree? But obviously, Adam had a very powerful Yetzer Hara.
If we would have not done it and the light would have come through, how come the book would have been able to contain the light? Wouldn't have exploded? I mean, how can the book contain the light?
What light? The Neshama?
If he became transparent.
No, it can. It would lose its opaque quality, but it would contain it.
Well, it's still in the body.
It doesn't matter. The problem of the guf is not the fact that the neshama is in it. It's the fact that the neshama has incredible kedusha, and that kedusha was blast out of it. Once the opaqueness of the guf is removed, the kedusha blast out of it. It's like glass. You can do whatever beam of light through it, and the glass is not broken. Glass is not shattered by light. The same thing, the guf is not shattered by the light of kedusha. It's only if it's opaque that that opaqueness transforms, but it is not shattered.
What month did it happen?
He was created in Tishrei. First month, this happened in Rosh Hashanah.
What happened?
The test. The world was created on the 25th day of Elul, and Adam Rishon was put into the Gan on Friday. Friday, which was the 6th day, was the first day of Tishrei. It was the first day of what we have today, Rosh Hashanah.
What day did it work today?
What's that? Well, the world was created on the first day of Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah.
That's the question. The substance of what you said.
What?
The substance of what you're saying. God created Adam Rishon. So the Adam Rishon was created Olam Haba.
Yes. Yes. That's what we're going to get into
That was
next.
the whole place.
That is, yes. Okay, we're about to get into that. Yes.
You said before it was the fair test. How do you know it was the fair test? The rule test is not fair.
Well, we know that because the fundamental aspect of creation is free will. It's free will. Well, let me let me just, I'll answer your question. Let me just go ahead. Okay. Oh, we got another question.
What would happen if Adam would have lasted until Shabbos and he would have...
Mizach Kasuv. Say the word Mizach Kasuv, yeah.
And he would have lost his transparent next night. Would he, after Shabbos, would he still have that Yetzer Hara to...
No. Let's go into that. Okay, your both questions are the same. Why did God do this? Why did God do this? Okay? Very simply, we have discussed a very fundamental process. That process is called zichor. And I assume that you all people understand it. Okay? But the fundamental question really remains. What I have answered up to now is why the body, I have answered how the body can go into Olam Haba. I have answered the question how a physical body can go up into heaven. I have answered that question through what's called zichor. What I have not answered is why. Why does the Bnei Shem want that? Let Bnei Shem take the neshama of Adam, put it into a body, let Adam do the mitzvah, and when Adam is finished, let then God take out the neshama of the body and take the neshama and put it to a spiritual place called Olam Haba and let the body go back into the ground where it belongs. Why does God say, I want to put the neshama into a body in an eternal union, never to separate, so that I will create a mechanism called zichor where the neshama can go and what? And transform that body and take the body with it. Yeah, that sounds fine. We understand how the Bnei Shem did that, you see. We understand how the body gets to Olam Haba. We do understand it. We understand how Adam Rishon is able to take a completely different type of substance, right? And transform it so that it now goes into a place called Olam Haba, into a world of spirituality. We understand that. But what we do not understand is why. Why did the Bnei Shem do that? We understand the concept of zichor, the plus of zichor. But we do not know the reason for zichor. What is the reason for zichor? The reason is as follows. It is basically a very simple scenario. Okay? I'm just going to list it. 3 steps. There are 3 steps to this process. And you must bear with me. If you understand the 3 steps, you will understand the critical principle of all reality. What are the 3 steps? 1. When the neshama was created, and the Bnei Shem said, I want to put you in a position and allow you to exercise your ability to what? To perceive my beauty in a relative way. That would be your greatest simcha. And the neshama said, no. Why did the neshama say no? Because the neshama said, I am a reflection of you. And as a reflection of you, I have a sense of what? Of the need to create, the need to produce. I cannot take what you're going to give me without doing something in return. We said that was called Nama Diktufa. Nama Diktufa is the inability, it's 2 fancy Aramaic words, that refer to the inability of the soul to receive that which God wants to give it without in some way participating in the process itself. Why? Because it is like God in a sense. And just as God is a giver, a creator, a producer, and God is not a taker, the neshama says in a certain way, I must also produce and create. That is step number 1. Is the neshama in a complete state? Is it full power? Yes. The neshama was created in a state of full power, full existence, full spirit. We have referred to that state as a state of shleimus. The word shalem. The neshama at the outset is in a state of completion. It is whole. It is total. It is said to be in a state of shleimus. But in that state of shleimus, it experiences a very severe problem. It cannot receive God's bounty without in some way participating in the process of getting it. It cannot just sit there and be a total recipient. We understand that? What does the Rebbeinu Shalom do? The Rebbeinu Shalom says, you're right. I will let you earn what I am about to give you. I will not give it to you as a gift. I will let you earn it. You will work for it. Work for what? Work for your shleimus. What I will do is the following. I will tamper with your being. I will alter it and change it. And I will reduce you. And by reducing you, you will feel inadequate. And when you feel inadequate, that will produce a drive and a need to reestablish your adequacy. What is that state called? That state is called cheson. The Rebbeinu Shalom said, I will put you into a state of inadequacy, called a state of cheson. Why? Why should the Rebbeinu Shalom do that to the neshama? Why should the Rebbeinu Shalom take away from the neshama that which he gave it and put it into a state of inadequacy? Because the Rebbeinu Shalom turns around and says, you complete yourself. You restore yourself. Restore yourself to your full power. You do it. I won't do it. I did it for you in the beginning. I created you as a full capacitant being, didn't I? And then when I turned around to give you this reward, you refused it. Even though you were fully in capacity, you refused it. Because you said you were like me. And I said, fine. So if you're like me, you will do what I do. You will create. But what will you create? You will create yourself. I will make you into an inadequate being, and I will take away a sense of your totality, and I will tell you, and they give you the means to reinstate that totality, so that eventually you will have brought yourself back to a state of shleimus. But what's the difference between the shleimus you will have what? Earned after cheson to the state of shleimus that you had before I put you in the state of inadequacy? The difference is the following. When I made you and I made you complete, you were made complete because I made you complete. But when you restore yourself to completion by yourself, you will be sholem and complete because you made yourself complete. Not because I did. You did it yourself. And by you doing it yourself, you will be in the position to receive Olam Haba without the problem of Nam Niksufa. You will be in Olam Haba without rejecting it. Why won't you reject it the second time? Because the second time around, when you will have restored your completion, your fullness, you will have done it on your own terms. You will have done it by yourself, for yourself. I would not have done it for you. You see? So, we are to the second level of the scenario. The neshama was made inadequate. And God said to the neshama, restore yourself. Restore that inadequacy. By restoring that inadequacy, make yourself from a state of cheson to a state of shleimus, you will have done it, and therefore there will be no problems of Nam Niksufa. So, to get to here, to get to the state of reality, where the neshama is complete, the shleimus, without Nam Niksufa, without that problem, the Rebbeinu Shalom goes through the middle step by putting it into a state of inadequacy of cheson and seeing to it that the tools and instruments which this person needs to be mastering himself, to restore himself to completion, are his, and that he will do it on his own. Do we see the progression? Do we understand that clearly? This is the Bible of it all. This is the reason for the whole state of cheson. Now, the question is, how did the Rebbeinu Shalom make the neshama inadequate? What did he do? What was my question last time? What were the two things he did to the neshama that took away its spirituality? He put it into a guf, and he made the neshama unable to mezach that guf. The loss of the zichus factor in the neshama is the inadequacy that it possesses. That is its cheson. Because that's a diminution of its power. And the entrapment into a foreign substance called the guf is the second aspect of the inadequacy, or the cheson. And the Rebbeinu Shalom said, you have it in your hands to undo the damage. You have hands to undo what I did to you. You can remove both factors. I put you in a body, so it's a prison. You can get out of that prison. I took away your zichur factor. You can get it back. Listen to the mitzvah that I tell you. You listen to it, and I will give you back the power. And once you have back that power, you will remove and destroy the prison. Because you will convert the prison into your own home in Olam Haba. That which was your prison now will become your residence for Olam Haba. Do we understand it? And this now constitutes the essence of the matter. Why does the Banishim want the Neshama to drag the guf into Olam Haba? Because now for the first time we begin to realize what the guf really is, what the physical reality is. This physical reality is not a place simply where God wants to hide and withdraw. That's not simply His purpose. The purpose of physical reality is to serve as the base or the substrate of Olam Haba. This is Olam Haba. Here, this is Olam Haba in our world. Except we don't see it because there is no zichur. Hence there is no ruchnius. When that opaque factor is removed, right? Then this world, our universe will become Olam Haba itself. Olam Haba is this world in a high state of zichur. It is this world in a state of transparency. Do we understand? That is Olam Haba. So physical reality is the substrate of Olam Haba. It is the residence of Olam Haba. Why did God make Olam Haba with a physical reality as a residence? Because He wants to constantly remind him, who? The Neshama. That what? That who made Olam Haba? Did God make Olam Haba? No. Who created Olam Haba? You did. Man. By allowing the very construction, by allowing your evidence, by allowing your effort to be the base of your future rewards, you have a constant reminder in front of your face that it is your house that you built. I didn't build your house, you built it. If the Banishim took the Neshama away from the body and left it down and simply put it to spirituality, there would not be that reminder. Well, not totally, but it wouldn't be that reminder. The Banishim said to the Neshama, I put you in a state of chasson. I put you into a body. I don't let you see spirituality. Convert that body, you will see spirituality, and that body will become your home. That body will be the residence in Olam Haba. And that will be the eternal reminder that Olam Haba is yours. You own the house. You don't lease it. You don't rent it. You made it. I am simply giving you the tools. But I did not build it. That's why the Banishim wants the body to go into Olam Haba with the Neshama. So what the Banishim did was create the process of zichur, where the Neshama can actually go ahead and what? And create that Olam Haba through the physical universe. Not in spite of it, but through it. That's the reason for zichur. Is that if a person is given an equal Yetzer and an equal Yetzer Tov, right? If a person is given an equal one, so therefore we should be then under the law of probability, meaning that half the time we should succeed and half the time we should fail, right? If he's got an equal balance in two directions, well, half the time he succeeds and half the time he fails. That's a mistake. What is a mistake about that? Because that question is asked or assumes or does not have the correct information with regard to two things. Number one, the notion of the law of probability, and number two, what the essence of free will is. What is the essence of the law of probability? The law of probability says in the following, that if you take a coin, for example, and throw it up, right? 50% of the time it will come head, and 50% of the time it will become what? Tail. But is that a chance operation? No. Because the fact that there exists that kind of fact, the fact that the more times you throw that coin up, 50% will be heads and 50% will be tails, is a law itself. Through chance, if something is truly an aspect of randomness, it means it is not predictable. probability would not be able to define it or predict it. You understand? For something to be truly random, or something to be truly involved in pure chance, it means that there is no way you can predict the thing. If I know that 50% of the time a coin will go one way and 50% the other, I've got a pattern, I've got a system. But that means you're not dealing with pure chance, really. You see, it is an inconsistency, and it's a contradiction to say that the laws of probability tell us about the laws of chance. That's an absurdity, because total chance or pure chance has nothing to do with prediction. That's why the probability has nothing to do with this event. What is free will? Free will is total chance. There is no way to predict it. What do I mean? If I say that you have free will, what am I saying? I am saying is that there is nothing in all reality that can move you one way over the other. That's what I'm saying. That somehow, depending on where you go, has to do with something which is inside you. It has nothing to do with which is outside you. That's pure free will. It means that there's nothing in your environment. There's nothing outside of you. There's not a single pressure coming from anywhere that fundamentally will tell you how to choose. The only thing that will tell you how to choose is some pure aspect of your inner being itself that's not controlled or subject to anything outside of it. You see? And because of that, it's not possible to predict it. It is free. Free will means freedom from all external pressure. Freedom from anything outside of yourself. What you choose to do is something which emanates from in you, not from something which is at all outside of you. Do you understand that? Therefore, free will cannot be predicted. It cannot be known. It cannot be predicted. You see? Since it's not subject to anything outside, but only something which is in you, it cannot be known. It cannot be predicted. Free will is total chance. And it is not subject to the laws of probability, because the laws of probability are not laws about chance. It's laws about another type of pattern which we do not know. It refers to a certain type of causative system in which we are not aware of. But it refers to a pattern of some sort. But real free will is not a pattern. It is total chance. Do we understand that? It's subtle.
How to get to a place outside of mathematics?
Free will is outside of mathematics.
A place where 2 plus 2 is not equal to 4. Where's such a place?
That is the gift that He gave to man. That is a reflection of the divine. That is a reflection. Just like God is outside of reality, is there anything that will tell us what God does? Is there any pressure on God? If the Buddha wants to do something or doesn't want to do something, is He controlled by anything that determines Him one way or another? The Buddha is a being of absolute free will. That's what He is. Since He is totally independent, He is totally free, isn't He? The gift of God to us is the ability to be totally free like Him. In that way, that is true divinity. And that's the gift of being like a divine being. Therefore, it's not subject to mathematical law or physical law or pattern. How that's possible? I don't know. I don't know what that eternal intrinsic element is in the very self of a person that makes him free. You see? But it lies there. Just like God is free, man is free. In a real way. Okay.
Maybe a mistake to use the term 50-50 or such terms like that.
Yes. To be the probability.
Indicates probability.
Right, yes. But I accepted the question. It's a very good question. But you understand the answer?
Maybe it's more like...
You gotta work on it. It's subtle. Yeah, you had a question too. Did I answer your question? I did. What was that question?
I asked you if Adam were to flash into a cup without joining the theater, would he still have the HRR to...
Oh, no, okay. No, I didn't answer that question yet. No, that's what I wanted to say, because the question has greater significance. The question, please. The question is the following. If Olam Rishon had gone to Olam Haba, what would have happened to his Yetzer Hara? The answer is the Yetzer Hara would have disappeared. Why? Because the Yetzer Hara has its fundamental roots in the body. The main reason why Devotion created the guf was so that the Yetzer Hara can reside there. A Yetzer Hara cannot go to a neshama and say sin. That's a laughable situation. Because the neshama is in cognizance of God. So what do you mean sin? It's laughable. The neshama can only sin, the person can only sin when that neshama is in a guf and ruchnius is withdrawn. Then it doesn't know, it's not clear, the person doesn't know, you see. It's possible to make a mistake. You can't go over to the neshama directly and say, do a sin with what? For what? I don't have a body. Not only that, why should I do it? Don't you see the Bnei Shalom? What kind of laughable situation is that? It's absurd. So the Bnei Shalom puts the neshama into the guf and the person is now subject to sin. Because the person now exists in a state where spirituality is not evident. You see, it's only hinted at, but it is not obvious. So the person now has the capacity to sin. So the body is a fundamental precondition for sin. Without the body, there is no possibility of doing a ches or an avera. Now, what does zich do? Zich destroys the body's ability to what? To hide ruchnius. Once it destroys that ability, could he sin? No. Because he's taken away what? The vehicle of the Yetzer Hara. There is no more vehicle of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara no longer has a body in which to work with. The body is now spiritual. So what are you going to do? You see what I'm saying? Therefore, if Adam would have achieved Olam Haba, he would have destroyed the Yetzer Hara. He would have destroyed all this in the world. Because he would have been Mazachis Guf, and he would have cut off the feet of the Yetzer Hara. Because the Yetzer Hara could no longer stand. He has no base to stand. There's no ground in which he could stand anymore. Do we understand that? In a short way, in a certain similar way, and I want to deviate for a second. In a certain way, I want to deviate slightly. This is what the Mashiach will do. You know, when you think about it, what the Mashiach is going to do is awesome. Nobody has ever done it. You know what the Mashiach is going to do? The prophet in the Torah tells us. It says that in the time of the Mashiach, Umola Ordeif Hashem K'mayim L'yom Achatem, and the earth will be filled of the knowledge of God, like the waters cover the sea. You know what that means? That means that everybody in this world, every living human is going to wake up and say, God is, without a shred of doubt. Everyone, every Jew, every man, woman and child, every goy, no matter who and what he is, will say, Hashem Hu Elokim, God is. How do you do that? How does the Mashiach come along and do that? No man has ever done that before. Even Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't do that. How do you take an entire world and say God is with absolute certainty? You know how you do that? Because what the Mashiach will be able to do is not establish Zichur. He will not do that because that's after his time. That's a long time later on. But what he will do is he will bring down a new light, a new understanding. And he will give this understanding to every living creature. Once the person has that understanding will give the person a clear knowledge of Ruchnius. Clear. So that the Yetzer Hara will no longer function. So what the Mashiach will do is not take the Yetzer Hara away from the man, but will take the man away from the Yetzer Hara. What Zich will do is take the Yetzer Hara away from the man. You see the opposite processes? That's the difference. In Olam Haba, when it comes to that time, we will all take the Yetzer Hara away from the human race. Why? Because we will destroy it. We will move its body. We will move the vehicle, the base in which it stands. We will no longer have bodies the way we do now. Hence we will destroy, we will remove the Yetzer Hara from the world. But the Mashiach comes before. He doesn't have the power to do that. Yes. Nor can he do it collectively, individually. What essentially happens before his time, he will remove man away from the Yetzer Hara and give man such a spectacular life that man will no longer sin the way he does, because his knowledge of the Bnei Shalom and spirituality will be so clear. That answers your question, I think. But that's the essence. From this we understand the true nature and the tachlis, the objective of Adam Rishon. The purpose of Adam Rishon was what? Was to create a house in Olam Haba and to destroy the Yetzer Hara. When you destroy the world of Chassan, when you destroy the world of Guf, when you restore the power to the Neshama, you destroy the Yetzer Hara. And when you do that, you build a residence for Olam Haba. It is the same process. Are there any questions?
Why did he want to create the Olam Haba?
Who?
Right. Why
Yeah.
did he want to create the Olam Haba at all?
Long way back. That gives him a toll. No. Well, that's long way back. The true answer to that question, nobody knows. Because to know that, you have to know how God thinks. And that's beyond our ability, really. But even to approach that question, you have to know much more stuff. But essentially, the basic answer that we give is to be maker. The Baruch Shem in essence is goodness. And it's the nature of goodness to do good. That's what it means to be good to someone. To do good. So what the Baruch Shem did was to create a neshama, to put it to a condition where it is in a tremendous simcha. That's the essential thing. God is perfect goodness. And goodness means what you do to someone else, right? So therefore what the Baruch Shem did was create a neshama so that it can give us a place of perfect happiness. Or simcha. Okay? That's the essential thing. But to go into it deeper, we'd have to go into the advanced things. But that's basically what it is. But that wasn't enough, because there was a problem of Nam Miksufa, you see. So that leads to our entire situation here. You see now an important thing. You see the pattern of the whole picture? If you don't see it now, you're not going to see it. You see the pattern? You see how it started? You see the necessity, you see how it started with Nam Miksufa? You see the necessity to remove Nam Miksufa? You see the implementation of the Guf and the removal of the Neshama's power? You see the redemption of the Neshama? You see the purpose of Adam Rishon? You see how the entire thing is built on Zichuch? And how Zichuch is built on Nam Miksufa, on the Guf being present in Olam Haba? You see the entire panoramic view? That's what you're seeing. This is a full scope of how it begins and how it ends. If you have this view crystal clear in front of your head, you will begin to see how this system works. This is not the full system. Why? Because what are we missing from this system? No, failure. We are missing the prerogatives and the conditions of failure. What happens if Adam fails to do Zachir's good? What then? That's what we're missing. You know, I haven't taken that into consideration, have I? We're talking about success over here. We're Americans, we deal in success. Can do. So that's what it is. We deal with Zichor. But the truth of the matter is, this is only 50% of the system. Isn't it? There is obviously a whole other system called failure and rehabilitation. You see, that's the other 50%. But how can you understand that other 50% without understanding this? This is a complete sweep of what the system is all about, the way it should have been. What we must understand is what the system was about, the way it is. But you cannot understand what the system is about the way it is without knowing what it should have been. We cannot look at a modified design, at an altered schematic diagram, without understanding what the original diagram was about. This was the original diagram. This is its mechanism, this is objective, and this is its reason for being. All the elements tied together. If you came tonight, you came at the right share. Okay. What's revealed in its unrevealed way. This is what Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto tells us. This is what he only hints at. Because this process The process of failure and the process of rehabilitation is a hidden mystery of reality. It is a hidden mystery of the Hashgacha, you see. And that is a whole different ballgame. But we begin to examine some of the intricacies of what's involved. And when we finish, we will understand how the entire thing connects to the whole concept of Mashiach. And we will see that the whole concept of Mashiach is built on this